Good morning. My name is Scott, sometimes known as StaticCampervan, here on YouTube. And today I find myself at Moonstone Beach. Moonstone Beach here is located just south of the little town of Trinidad and sits right on the 101 freeway. And this is a popular beach in the summertime. There's a surf camp that goes on here. And so I don't come down here very often, but it is a very pretty beach. Some special features about this beach, like this river that flows right into the ocean here. This is the Little River. This is probably my ideal weather, so I'm quite happy to be here today. And it's nice that it's a little bit off season, so we don't have the surf group going on here, just have a fairly empty beach. There are a few people out, but not too many today. While this is a very beautiful and peaceful place to be, I did not come out here to sit at the beach. I actually came out here to do a little something. That's why I'm heading back to the van right now to get that started. So I started off this week thinking I was going to keep my food budget down a little bit and just eat sandwiches and eggs instead of buying something expensive like beef. And that lasted a couple of days. And then I went to the store and bought a big thing of chuck roast here. So I'm going to cook this up today. This is today's project. I just got too hungry. I've been really hungry lately, and I don't like to be hungry. So the sandwiches and eggs just weren't cutting it. So I think that this will be better, and I'll get several meals out of this. This is a little over 3 pounds of chuck roast, and I'm gonna get this on and cooking because this is going to take a few hours to cook. So I thought might as well go to a nice place that has a nice atmosphere and something pretty that I can look out at, because once I get this started, I don't really like to walk away from the stove. So that's why I'm here at Moonstone. I was just going to do this the easy way and brown it off in my pot and then cook it right in here all in one. But I think looking at the size of this, I think I'd be better off cutting this down into some smaller pieces and then browning it off on a shallower pan. I think I'll get a better end result that way. So it'll take me a couple of minutes longer to do this. Let me grab a good knife for this. I think my bread knife will work well for this. Okay, I'm not going to get too crazy about this. I'm just going to chop it down into a few pieces, and it should make it a little easier for me to get these browned off well, and probably make it slightly easier to get it in my little pots. I always have to make sure that I don't buy too much. I would prefer, if I'm going to do a long stew like this, I would prefer to do as much as I can, but this pot that I have is, I think, a 4-quart pot, if I'm remembering right. Maybe it's 3.5, but it's really not that big. So I found that about 3 to 4 pounds is about as much meat as I can really do. Anyway, this will make it a little bit easier. I'm going to salt this up, and I've been preheating my pan here. So as soon as that gets hot, I'll just brown all these off and then set them into the pot to cook. My pan's good and hot. I've got some oil in here, and now I'm just going to set the meat in. And I'm just going to let it sit and try to get as brown of a crust as I possibly can. So this will take quite a little while since I've got these 3 pieces. I'll just roll them around a little bit. This is that step that you really want to just slow yourself down. Make sure that you really get it nicely browned off on all sides, because this is where the real flavor comes in. While I'm waiting for that, I'll get my other flavors together. So I've got a can of some crushed tomato with some garlic in it, and to stew it all in, I have some beef broth. I just realized I bought the wrong can of tomato. I like this Mirrored Glen brand, and the fire roasted is the one that I usually get, but I was trying to get the one that had some roasted garlic in it, I thought I grabbed that can, but I must have grabbed the can next to it on the shelf at the store. Oh well, this will still be good and tasty because it is fire roasted tomato, so that'll add a little bit of extra flavor there. Well, now I'm just waiting for the meat to get browned off. I probably should have made a little bit more coffee before I started this. I've got a little bit of cold coffee left from this morning. So as I've been getting these browned up, I've been putting them in the pot that I'm going to stew them in, and I've just been coating them with some chili powder. And I'm using just a couple of different chili powders here. This is the same chili powder I use to make enchiladas with, and hopefully that'll add a little bit more flavor once I go to stew them up. Before I just start stewing them, I think I'm going to just put them back in the pan here and fry them off a little bit, just to cook off that chili powder. So I'm making this a little longer and more difficult for myself, but all for flavor in the end. This is one of the few times that I wished I had 2 burners, because it would make this a little bit easier, but I just do this little shuffle, which is all right. Now I'm gonna try to cook off the tomato a little bit, and then I'll put all the meat back into this pot so that I can stew it all up with a little bit of the beef broth. Okay, so it looks like we're up to a boil, so I'm just going to turn this down to a simmer. If I can do that without turning it off, that would be helpful. This is the one issue I have with the stove, is it is a little bit finicky, especially when I try to get it turned down as low as I can. And because I'm going to keep a top on this, it makes it extra difficult, and it is why I have to close that side doors, because any little gusts of wind will knock the flame out. That should be good. I have set my timer already for about 2.5 hours, and then I'll check on it and just see if the meat is cooked by then. Normally I find with this kind of meat, doing it this way, it takes somewhere between 2.5 and 3 hours. So I've got some time on my hands, but that is why I came out here to Moonstone, so that I have a nice backdrop that I can look at, and I've got a really nice soundtrack of the waves out there going. So I have something to just soothe me while I putter around the van and just do little things. I don't want to get too far away from the stove here. I just don't trust it. Somebody's dog keeps running up to the back door. I guess it can smell the meat cooking, so it keeps running up and staring at me, giving me the sobby eyes, and I keep telling it, I don't have anything for you, sorry, but it just stands there and stares at me for a minute or two, and then it runs off. I used up my New Mexico chili powder, so I'm gonna put my ancho chili powder in the glass jar. I guess it's not all gonna fit in here, but having a jar I think is probably better for this. I've been keeping this in a Ziploc bag, but it's just not quite as easy to use as this jar, especially because they have a flip top on this. And I've been using a lot of chili powder lately because I've been making a lot of enchiladas lately. This meat would probably go good with enchiladas, but I really don't like meat enchiladas. I really only like cheese enchiladas. Since I've been eating a lot of them, maybe that's part of the reason why I've been hungry. Maybe I just need more calories. I might have to just make some meat enchiladas, even though I really don't care for them. I really just like cheese enchiladas, although I have been putting some fried eggs on top of my enchiladas just because it makes them a little bit more filling, and I really do need the extra protein. I broke the fourth wall. Did you notice that on that last bit of video? I didn't move the tripod out of the way so you could see the tripod in the last little bit. I normally try to shift that stuff around because I just think it's distracting a little bit. Although now that I just did it and I'm thinking about this, what difference does it make if I have a tripod showing? I have 2 tripods and then another little mount, and I'll move the phone from one to the other. as I'm trying to give you a better look at what I'm doing. It's really hard because there's a lot of spots in the van here that I don't have a good place to set the phone up, but I always try to move it around a little bit to give you a little more view. The van is pretty small, and because I've got, you know, all this stuff kind of built out storage wise, it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of show all the spots and give you a good look at what's going on here, but hopefully you see a little bit. And I'll probably go back to hiding the extra tripod in the future, probably. This feels like jacket weather out here, but I'm gonna try to just get by with my new flannel shirts, see if that'll be enough. It's pretty chilly though, a little breezy, a little chilly. I might resort to a jacket in a bit. You know what might help too? Is some coffee. Since I just have the one burner and I don't want to take my pot off the stove, I need this to keep on cooking because we've got at least 2 hours more to go of cooking on this at least. I will resort to my electric kettle, and this is a tiny little 1 cup electric kettle. I think it holds about 350 milliliters of water. I don't know what that equates to in American speak, but it's tiny, but it's good for 1 cup of coffee. I rarely use this thing, one, because I think it's a little bit dangerous that it has the cord out of the back here, and the cord's really stiff, and it tends to want to flip this over even if it's full of water. I guess because it's not a lot of water, the cord is kind of stiffer than the weight of the water, and so I don't really like using it all that much. The other thing is it uses 300 watts of power, and that doesn't seem like a whole lot, right? 300 watts. But for my electrical system, it's a lot. And so I'll use this right now just because, you know, I don't want to move the meat off the stove. But this 1 cup of coffee is going to take, I think, about, on a day like today, it'd probably take about 4 hours to recharge the power that I'm going to use to make my coffee out of this, to boil just 1 cup of water for coffee. So that's a lot of recharge time. It's one of the reasons why I don't use this. It'll recharge a little bit faster on a more sunny day, but on a day like today, probably going to be at least 4 hours of recharge time. So this is going to be a very, very expensive cup of coffee in solar terms anyway. And when I say expensive, I mean that in a sense of time. It's just a lot of time to wait for recharging. So I've got it down here on the floor where I find it's not as big of a problem of tipping over. And can we see this? Oh, that cleared out. Let's see, so we're starting at 99% on my power pack. So we'll see what that ends up being once this boils. It only takes about 8 minutes to boil too, so it's actually pretty fast and efficient, almost as fast as my stovetop boils water. Okay, so it just finished. It's saying 99 degrees. It didn't get up to 100, but it beeped to let me know that it is done. That's 100 degrees Celsius. And we're down to 94% on my UPEZ battery pack. So pretty good power-wise, but on a day like today that's kind of dark out, it does mean that it's going to charge really slowly to get that recharged. Here's the other problem with this thing, is it doesn't have a pour spout, so it's not the easiest to pour from. I don't think that's the biggest problem though with this. I mean, the pour spout is probably the most annoying thing about this when I use it, but the biggest thing is just the cord situation. I think if you're looking for one of these and interested in one of these, you'd probably be better off getting one that sits on a base and the base has the cord, so that you can just take it off and not have to worry about the cord tripping you up a little bit. But the pour spout, kind of a big deal too. So this is the last of my Seattle coffee. I wonder if that means I should be heading back to Seattle now. What do you think? Should I go back to Seattle and restock with coffee? The kettle situation and how much power it uses is probably a good segue into talking about why I don't use electric to cook my food. And it may seem like I'm running my propane stove for a long time, being that it's probably going to be running for about 3 hours. But the thing with that is it's on its lowest setting. I've got it at a bare simmer, so it's not using a whole lot of propane. Versus if I were to try to do the same cooking off of electric, I would have run out of power before the meat got completely cooked. And on a day like today, that's kind of an important thing. I spend most of my time up north, Pacific Northwest kind of areas these days. And so this kind of overcast sky is, normal nowadays. And that obviously means solar is a little bit harder to come by. So I do have a way to cook this with an electric cooker. I actually bought a electric rice cooker a while back with the idea that I could use it not only to cook rice, but I could also use it to cook a stew in. As long as you keep the water level up in a rice cooker, it'll just keep running. So you can do other things than just rice. The trouble with it is that I found was that it just used too much power. I think it draws about the same amount of power as the little water kettle that I have. But of course, if you're running it for hours at a time, that means that I would run out of power long before the meat got cooked if I were trying to use that rice cooker. It'd be the same with a slow cooker or an Instapot or something like that, although most of those use more wattage, so I'd run out of power a lot sooner. I'd probably be already out of electric if I were trying to use something like those. But it's just why I don't use a whole lot of electric for cooking. I just have a very small system that just can't handle a lot of power that way. And just to give you an idea here of the size of my electrical system, I have a single battery. It is a lithium battery, but it's a single battery, 100 amp hour battery, and I have 2 solar panels to recharge that. So both of the panels are different wattage. The old one, my original panel, is a 150 watt panel, and then this one back here is a 100 watt panel, so 250 watts that recharge my battery once it needs to be charged. And that happens all on its own because I have these panels mounted up on the roof of my van. I don't really have to think about this very much. Now, I don't have these tied into my vehicle, so I'm not getting any engine charging, and all of this is on purpose. So having a small battery, just one small battery, and not having it tied up to my van's engine, all of that's on purpose. I want a very small system that is easy to maintain, and the one drawback with this is I should probably have more solar up here, and that's one of the things I've been looking at. I did add the second panel, I guess, before last winter, and it got me through the winter a lot better. If I wanted to add more power, I could always take out the vents here and put another panel there. That's not something I really want to do, but it is something that I think about doing just because since I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest most of the time, we've got this kind of dark sky. It would be nice to have a little bit more power from time to time. But I think it's really important to note here that I have all the power that I need. 250 watts of solar power charging up a 100 amp hour battery is probably a little under the minimum amount if you have a fridge. And that's the biggest power user in my van is my fridge. It uses probably 80 to 90% of the power that my system generates. So that's the one thing that I just kind of need to keep in mind. Most of the power goes to that. If I do want to use some electric for something else, like I did here with my electric kettle, I just need to keep in mind of the power that I've got coming in and the temperature of the day. So today the temperature is pretty cool. So even though I don't have a whole lot of solar power coming in, the fridge is not cycling on very much. And so I have that ability to use a little bit of power here and there for something else. So the way I have my system set up here is a little bit different than most people have their electric system set up, in that I don't have an inverter that is running. And so because I don't have an inverter and my system is really just DC power only, that means that I do have a lot more power available to me. Inverters do waste a lot of power. As soon as you turn that inverter on, there's a lot of waste going on. That's the reason that I don't want to have an inverter on my system. If I do need to run something AC power, I just use the backup power system, my little UPS backup power supply, and that gets me by. And then of course I can recharge that with my solar panels. As long as my solar panels are charging up my house battery, then I'll just use them to recharge the backup battery system. If we've got a lot of darker days, like today is a little bit of a darker day, so a little bit lower solar gain on a day like today, I just have to keep that in mind, and I might not use any other battery power for anything other than my fridge on a day like today. But most of the time I've got an excess of power. There's a couple of weeks out of the year that I find if I stay up really far up north, like I am here right now, I might have a little bit of trouble and I might have to just cut back on power usage. But most of the time I've got plenty of power and I just don't have to worry about anything at all. The system just kind of handles itself, as long as I'm not being wasteful and using electric to make coffee like I did here today. I've got power in spades really most of the time. Should probably check the meat and see how it's coming along. It's looking pretty good. It's actually starting to feel pretty tender already, but definitely needs a little more time. My timer I think is saying about 40 more minutes, so that looks like it's going to be just about right. And I'm feeling like this is taking forever, but I keep staring out at the water out there and I keep wanting to go out and walk along the beach. I just don't want to leave this sit by itself, so I guess I'll just have to sit here and wait. Getting back to the solar power thing, I think if you're trying to figure out how much power you need, there are some solar calculators online. Like my solar panels are from a company called Renogy, and they have a solar calculator that you can kind of plug in some figures and kind of get back an idea of how much power you're going to need, both solar power and battery power. I don't know how accurate that is, but it should give you a good idea. I think for my point of view, just for how I have my system set up, meaning I don't have an inverter on my system, I'm just using DC power only. My fridge runs off of DC power, it doesn't run through an inverter. So the way my system is set up, I think if I had 150 amp hours of battery and 600 watt hours of solar, I think I wouldn't have any trouble with power whatsoever. In fact, I could probably even stay like around Seattle all year long if I have 600 watt hours of solar on my roof. Now, I don't have room on my roof for 600 watt hours. If I had room for it, I would add it, but I just don't have room in a minivan to have that much solar up there. I don't know if that was all helpful or if that was just a tangent on my part, but I think what I wanted to get across is the way my power system is right now, and has been since I added the second solar panel. It's just about perfect. It's nice because I don't ever have to think about it really. And everybody's power needs are going to be different. But for me, this kind of works, even though I really could use a little bit more battery power. I could use a whole lot more solar power. But at the end of the day, I have in excess of power most of the time, most of the year. So it's kind of nice the way it is right now. More battery power, more solar power would be better, but it's not really needed, especially when I take into the consideration that this van is just falling apart. Every time I take it to a mechanic, they tell me, you need to get rid of this van. And I keep trying to get across to them that I don't drive a whole lot. Everybody just thinks that, you know, if you're a nomad, you're driving hundreds of miles a day. And I'm really not. Probably driving 10 or 15 miles a day, which is not so good. I need to get back to my regular kind of low miles, keep it in the single digits, but it's not a lot of driving. And so, you know, the van, being that it's falling apart, should bother me a little bit more than it is. But I know that as long as I keep my mileage to a minimum, the van is not really that big of a concern. But I also don't really want to invest a whole lot more money into adding more solar panels and more battery power because it's just not necessary. Well, one good thing about this is there's almost no cell service, at least not for me. So I have not been tempted to be on my phone. I've just been enjoying the environment here. The sound of the waves and the nice cool temperatures means this is good napping weather, I think. So I'm just going to kick my feet up for a minute and wait for the meat to get done, which should be fairly soon. So I should have a nice little short nap. Our cooking is done. The meat is nice and tender, just falling right apart. I don't know if you can see that. And I have sampled it already, but I'm going to sample it again. That's awesome. The meat is fantastic, and the broth is incredible. It's really spicy. I like having a lot of broth because I'll use that to make enchiladas, or I can make it into some gravy or something to go along with the meat. But this is very good, and now we'll just leave this to sit and cool down for a few minutes, and that means we can get out, walk around the beach for a little bit. Well, would you look at this? We're done with our food prep, and the sun has come out for us. On my last trip out here to Moonstone, the beach was so crowded that I never actually walked over in this direction. So since we have pretty much the entire beach to ourselves today, there's a few people here, but it's pretty empty today. We can kind of walk wherever we want without getting in anybody's way. So I'm going to do that. Check out the riverside here. I'm not sure why they call this Moonstone, but it does kind of appear like we're in another world, so maybe that has something to do with it. Looks like the fog is rolling back in. It was nice to get a little bit of sunshine for a few minutes. Now we're back to the way it started out this morning, which is okay by me, of course. I really like this weather. It is chilly though, a lot chillier than I thought it was going to be today. I'm glad I've got my new shirt, flannel shirt. I just bought this last week, and it's been coming in handy. I had to wear it last night because it was a little bit chilly. I didn't want to turn the heater on and waste fuel for the heater, so I just put my shirt on. So working out both for last night and for today. What an awesome place this is. I was noticing people walking over on the other side of the river there, and I was trying to figure out how to get over there until I got out to this section and realized that you got to get your feet wet. And well, I like cooler temperatures. I don't like cold water necessarily, so I'm not getting my feet wet today. It is taco time, and no, I don't mean the fast food chain restaurant. We're gonna make some tacos for ourselves. Some real quick and easy tacos. Yeah, I'm doing a quick fry of some tortillas in some coconut oil. And the only reason I'm using coconut oil is because I'm almost out of olive oil somehow. So coconut oil it is, although coconut oil works really good for this because it has a nice high smoke point. For years, my favorite way to cook chuck roast, like I did here, was very similar, except I would cook it in red wine. And I stopped doing that because I stopped drinking years ago. And it just kind of got me thinking that if I'm not going to be drinking alcohol, then I probably should not be cooking in red wine. Although I realized that most of the alcohol gets cooked out of red wine when you cook it for a long time. But it just didn't seem like a good idea to keep cooking with red wine if I am going to try to stop drinking alcohol altogether. So that's why I started doing it this way, using a can of tomato instead of tomato paste, and adding the chili powder into it just to give it some extra flavor that I was kind of missing with the red, without using the red wine. And I kind of like this way better, honestly, but I would have never known that if I hadn't have decided to stop drinking alcohol. So I'm hoping to get these nice and crispy. So I've got these in here and get them crisp on one side, then flip them over and get them all crispy all the way around. I think it'll go extra good with that nice soft meat, and also it'll heat up the meat as well. The meat's still pretty hot, but just make sure it's good and cooked all the way through. It's funny now that I guess it's maybe after work, late enough that it's after work, and so the parking lot is filled up with a bunch of people, more than there have been all day, and I think half of them, or at least half of them, are surfers here to get a few sessions in before it gets dark. Trying to get all this put away. This one is mostly meat with a little bit of broth, and then this one is mostly broth with a little bit of meat. I couldn't fit them both in the same bag. These are silicone bags I bought from IKEA a while back. They're really good quality, and I don't have to worry about them busting, so I like these. So I'll get these zipped up and put down in the fridge to chill down. This is going to be at least 5 days of meals, 2 meals a day out of these. So I think it's well worth it. Although I probably should have maybe bought some less expensive meat, but this meat that is local here and grass-fed, it just tastes so good all on its own. Plus I like buying local meat as much as I can, just like I like to buy local coffee as much as I can. Although I was drinking Seattle coffee today, so there I'm a liar. Okay, I think I've got those in there so they won't fall over. I do kind of worry about those because if they do fall over, they should be held shut by the little top piece that goes on here, but I still worry about them, so just like to get them sitting upright. Should be good. I've got some washing up to do here before I'm done. I'm half tempted to take this pot over to the shower, because there is a shower set up here, and just wash it out there, but there's so many people around here, I'm actually embarrassed to do that. I think it looks a little bit weird taking your dirty pots and pans over to a beach shower. There's probably going to be surfers over there using it, so if there weren't quite so many people and maybe not quite so many surfers, I would do it. But I think I'm just going to wash this up here. Did time go backwards? I don't understand. Look at this. It's all clear, beautiful, blue sky out here. Sun is shining. Crazy. What happened? It's almost like it's a different day, isn't it? It's not a different day. It's just the the clouds burned off, all the fog left, and now it's all sunny and beautiful out. Although, don't have a whole lot of time left of the day, but cool, a little bit of everything today. That's all right. Oh, I'm making more coffee. It's okay. I'm just gonna make some road coffee because I think we've got about a 20-minute drive to get back to Eureka from here. So I just need road coffee. That's all this is. Oh, look at this. The tide has gone out. And while we lost our fog and clouds here, I still have them back towards Eureka there. Boy, it's beautiful right now. So funny that it's a lot brighter than it was when I first got here. But wow, look at the light out here. It's just awesome. A lot more people out here too, still. Bunch of people playing volleyball. Somebody's got a net set up down there. It's very cool. I'm walking back over in this direction because without the fog and the clouds, we can get a look at some of the rock outcroppings up here ahead. I started walking in this direction because I've heard that there are some sea caves around here. And I get up close and look at this color of this water. It just gets prettier and prettier the closer I get to it. And I think that sea cave is right there. So I'm making my way over. I think I'm gonna wind up with some wet feet here today. It'll be worth it. How cool is this? This cave here has this, what I thought was a rock at first, but it's a giant tree stump covering part of the cave up, so the cave goes back farther. I don't have a flashlight or light on me to see back in there, but how cool is that? This is so cool. I am glad I finally found this. This is awesome. I think the last time I came out here, the tide was up this far, and so there was no way to get back here unless you swam over. I'm pretty sure probably why I didn't find it the last time. I'm curious to know how deep that sea cave is. It's kind of hard to tell with that big log stuck in the entryway there, but I'll have to come back here at some point with a light or something. Maybe even in the daytime, be able to see a little bit more. Although it looks like it goes back a ways. Such a cool thing. This is awesome. I'm wondering if there are any more caves in here. There might be. The only thing is, I'm getting chilly. So I think we'll have to come back here another day and check it out. It looks like the fog is rolling back in here too, so might be a good time just to hit the road because it is going to get dark, and I have a hard enough time driving in the dark. You throw some fog in there and I'm not going to want to go anywhere. I guess I could just pull over and stop pretty much any place I want though, couldn't I? I live in a van. but I think it might be time to hit the road. So we'll call it quits here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it.